From here all the way to the park exit and even into town is a great place to be on the lookout for moose. Now, no guarantees, and there might even be other wildlife, but best chances for a moose sighting are through here. If we're lucky to see moose, please do not ever approach them too closely. A good distance to keep away is 2 to 3 bus lengths. Moose are known for having a mean nature. You don't want to be on the wrong end of a grumpy moose. It's common for there to be moose jams when one is spotted, especially the bull moose with a full-grown rack on his head. The same rules apply for seeing moose. If you decide to stop, make sure we pull right off the road so we don't impede traffic coming through. If we don't stop, please just proceed slowly so as we don't stress the animal and so we don't have any mishaps with tourists who temporarily lose their common sense while in awe of a wildlife sighting and decide to walk on the road. It's always best to stay in your vehicle to watch and to take pictures. You might get out of your car and think, well, you're far enough away. But those big guys can move quickly and are suddenly too close for comfort. The moose like this area because there's lots of marshy and swampy areas that are rich in the water plants and willows that they love to eat. We're approaching my last recommended stop inside the park boundary, and it's an important part of history for this part of the park. Many of the people who were first drawn to Colorado were drawn here by the idea of striking it rich by finding gold or silver or other mining successes. Some more pragmatic early settlers imagined themselves homesteading and ranching cattle. A German man, John Holzworth, thought this valley would be good for ranching cattle. He came to this area from Denver after his saloon was closed due to prohibition and decided to start a ranch. Their family ranch was just outside the park's boundary and ranched cattle for about 3 years. But John was a smart man and had watched the progress of Fall River Road being built. He realized that if people came over from the Estes Park side, well, they'd need a place to stay for the night. He might even get them to stay for a few nights, and tourists could become his gold. He turned his ranch into a tourist dude ranch with home-cooked meals, horseback rides, and sightseeing tours. They ran the dude ranch until 1974, when the Nature Conservancy bought the property and incorporated it into the park. There's a half-mile trail that we can take to some of the old buildings that are still standing. The buildings have the rooms still set to how life was back in those days. We should see the sign soon on our right. It's an interesting and easy place to visit. The half-mile trail to the site from the parking lot is relatively flat. Let's turn in if we're interested to spend, say, a half an hour here. Fallen trees and to get through deep snow. Here's one last piece of trivia. Moose hair is actually hollow. That makes it fantastic insulation during those cold Colorado winters.
How cool was that? Hope that picture turned out. Didn't really expect to see the moose. But gosh, that was a bunch. So I hope you're all enjoying the trip. It's been quite the experience. See the clouds rolling in and the line in between clouds and blue sky. See how flat the land is coming down through the valley.
When you're the first person to an area, you get to name things. But those names don't always stay forever. As is typical of white and European explorers, many of the mountains in Colorado were named in honor of someone. Even though mountains were called various things by the early settlers, the Native Americans or French trappers that first came to this area, the peak's official names were set by the U.S. Board of Geological Names. Long's Peak, the highest peak in the park and the 15th highest in the state, was named for an explorer, Stephen H. Long, who could see the peak from far away on the eastern plains, but never climbed it. Other peaks were named for prominent people in Colorado or in honor of someone back east, meaning some peaks had names for people who never even saw them. In the early 1900s, those who were lobbying for this area to become a national park thought Congress might be more inclined to do so if peaks and landmark names came from the Native Americans that once lived here. In 1914, members of the Arapaho tribe were brought to the region in a trip sponsored by the Colorado Mountain Club. The tribe members had spent their youth in the area and were asked to offer the Native American names for the various peaks, lakes, and other geographic features in the area. Their names tended to be more from attributes or observations. For example, Long's Peak and its neighbor, Mount Meeker, were called the Two Guides, as being so tall, the Native Americans used them to find their way home. The Never Summers is a rough translation of Never No Summer, though we changed it because we don't like double negatives in our grammar. The names and stories behind them were told on this expedition. Today, Rocky Mountain National Park has one of the greatest concentrations of Native American place names in the United States. Kawanichi, Onahu, Tonahutu are just a few.
Must be left over from forest fire.
Through the Grand Lake entrance, for Rocky Mountain National Park. And that will be the end of our tour. If we're turning around and driving back to the Estes Park site, then I'll have commentary all the way back. I'll point out the most important sites once again, but I'll also have some different stories going that way. Exiting the park this way, I'll have directions to get us into the main part of the town. But before we do that, I just wanted to say thank you for touring with me, and I sure hope you enjoyed yourself. If you did, then I would encourage you No, make that a formal request for you to write a review in your app store or other review sites. And please mention which tour you did. You'll see a button on my home screen for this tour. I'm still kind of new, and it helps other travelers to learn about me and what I do. And I hope we get a chance to tour again together somewhere else. As you can see, we're driving into the burn scar of massive fires in the late sightseeing season of 2020. If we continue past Grand Lake, you'll find the amount of forest burned to be quite shocking. These fires were very scary, and at times moved at tremendous speeds by creating their own winds. The fire that burned this section even forced the emergency evacuation of Estes Park, though thankfully the town was spared. Now, though we find burned forest to be ugly, it's actually amazing to see how delicate new life takes hold in the destruction. When those fires aren't caused by careless humans, it's part of a natural process of rejuvenation. The entrance station should be in view just ahead, and that will be the beginning of us leaving the park. The town here is Grand Lake, and I'll give you directions to get into the main part of town. If we don't plan to stop, then you can keep following Highway 34 to where it meets Highway 40, then following through Winter Park, over Berthoud Pass, and we'll reach the junction with I-70 in about an hour and 20 minutes. If we're going all the way to Denver, then it's about 2 hours in normal conditions. The town of Grand Lake is one of Colorado's oldest resorts. It was never a big mining or ski town, but began as a supply center in 1879 when gold and silver were discovered nearby in the Colorado River. The amounts of gold and silver were small, and Grand Lake survived by becoming a lakeside resort. What gold and silver couldn't do for the town, the motor vehicle did. Although back in the early days of car touring, it was a 2-day drive from Denver. This area attracted families who built summer homes along the shores of the lake. Homes were built as early as 1902, and some of those are still in use. Many of the homes around the lake have been in the same family for generations. The lake itself is the largest natural lake in Colorado. And as we know, Grand Lake is the western entrance to the Rocky Mountain National Park.
See the lake up here. I'll let this video run to maybe we'll be able to get it in this section, and then I'll stop this side of the video.
There's a really big sign that shows us where the turnoff to the left to go into the town of Grand Lake is. I promise we can't miss it. If we want to take a break before we continue on, I encourage you to go into the heart of town and maybe even visit the lakeshore. It's a full-service town, and there's a visitor center right at the junction where we turn off Highway 34 if you want some local tips and recommendations or even a town map. If our plan is to keep driving through on 34, this is where we'll say goodbye and wish you a safe and comfortable onward travels. If you do turn toward town, I'll have one more direction to take us to the heart of the village.
get the view off to the left here if I can.